Now, breaking news from WRAL. Coverage you can count on.
Breaking news this noon, the Carolina Hurricanes will formally announce their new GM tomorrow, but we have the inside scoop today. Chris Levengood is in the WRAL Severe Weather Center, or Live Center, I should say, with who will lead the team's quest for the Cup.
And our heat will intensify as we get closer to the weekend. We have a moderate and then a major risk for heat-related illnesses as we get into the weekend. I'll explain how it will feel and why.
And a former state employee is scheduled to face a judge on the West Coast on a felony charge. What we've learned about the alleged crime.
We start off this noon with a live picture of Carolina Beach. That might be a nice place to avoid the heat. It's going to be steamy out there this afternoon today, and our first major heat wave of the summer arrives this weekend. Johnston County is already asking customers to voluntarily conserve water to meet what's expected to be high demand.
Odd number streets addresses are allowed to water on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and while even number street addresses are allowed to water Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. No irrigation is allowed on Mondays. Elizabeth Gardner is on the WRAL weather patio with a look at the pattern that could lead to some dangerous conditions. Elizabeth.
We are likely to be dry for the rest of this week. And of course, the heat is going to be a big issue. We have the potential for a dangerous heat this weekend with the heat index at 105 or possibly hotter on a few of the days. Let's take a look at the heat index up through Saturday. So today, tomorrow, and Thursday, I mean, low 90s is hot, but our humidity has been on the lower side. And I'll tell you, I'm in a little shady spot here on the WRAL patio. It feels fine out here. We have a little bit of a breeze. It's not going to be fine by the time we get to Friday. It's going to feel like 98, and then Saturday, 103 to 105, and then maybe 105 to 107 on Sunday and Monday. So that's going to put us in the zone where we could see some heat-related illnesses, especially the first time that we see that this season. Really, folks have to get used to it, and so we're definitely not used to this kind of heat. So Saturday, we've seen a little bit of a change in our heat risk map here. It's back down to moderate. That's good news. That means it'll still feel like 100 with the heat index, but Sunday, we're looking at red for most of the viewing area, so that's a major heat risk. That's going to feel like at least 105. And then on Monday, same story. As a matter of fact, if you look there at the Triangle area and at Fayetteville, there's a little area of purple, and that puts us up to extreme. And so we have the potential for a heat advisory or possibly an excessive heat warning. We'll talk a bit more about what that means for our area coming up.
And good afternoon, I'm Chris Levengood in the WRAL Live Center. Drop the word interim because Eric Tulsky has just been named the permanent general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. This coming into the newsroom within the past hour. We've heard from at least a statement from the owner of the team, Tom Dundon, saying that Tulsky is ready for this opportunity and has a proven history of managing people and overseeing operations both outside of hockey and over the last decade with the Hurricanes. Now, you may recall that Tulsky was named the interim general manager back on May 24th after Don Waddell stepped down, but now they have the permanent GM into place, and obviously you have that news about Rod Brindamore obviously extending his contract, so things are looking up there for the Carolinas for the next season.
That's some big news. Thanks, Chris. We have new information about a state employee who was arrested in California. WRAL Investigates broke the story last night about Harlan Fry. We've learned that he is no longer employed at the North Carolina Department of Revenue. WRAL's Chelsea Donovan joins us live with details about the charges that he now faces. Chelsea.
Yeah, Renee, so we understand Harlan Fry started working for the state back in 1993, but he didn't get the position of HR director here at the North Carolina Department of Revenue until April of 2022. We understand in speaking to a state spokesperson that he was relinquished from that position. He no longer has that position, and that happened on June the 10th. Now, let's give you some background here. 62-year-old Harlan Fry was arrested by Long Beach police on June the 9th, for the charge of arranging a meeting with a child for lewd purposes. Now, let me tell you a little bit about that charge. It is a felony charge. It carries up to 4 years in prison. And if convicted, the person must register as a sex offender. We understand from court records he was in jail for 4 days in Los Angeles County before being released on the 13th. Now, he's due to go before a judge this morning in Los Angeles. His LinkedIn page also states he went to North Carolina A&T. And on their website, it states that he was the director of basketball operations, but it sounds like from talking to a spokesperson there, he stopped working there back in 2016. Now, state records show that Fry was making around $143,000. We understand that he also again, was let go of this position back in June the 10th of this year. We've reached out to the state. We've also reached out to Fry to get more clarification about what he was doing in L.A., and we hope to bring you those details in our later newscasts. Live in downtown Raleigh, Chelsea Donovan, WRAL News.
Starting today, new lanes are now open on a busy section of I-440 that's been under construction for quite some time. Let's go to WRAL's Ken Smith right now to show us what to expect with this new traffic pattern, Ken.
Yeah, Jeff, this new traffic pattern took effect this morning. You know, we've been all having to deal with that traffic congestion along I-440. Well, here's what we're talking about. It runs from Lake Boone Trail all the way through to Western Boulevard. And really, the new traffic pattern shifts from the New Wade Avenue Bridge onto the Hillsborough Street Bridge. Let's take you behind the wheel and show exactly what we're talking about this morning. This new traffic pattern really replaces the temporary lanes that were in place as part of the I-440 improvement project. So just be mindful of this new traffic pattern as you make your way through that northern section of the Beltline. But again, it runs from Lake Boone Trail all the way through to Western Boulevard.
Thanks, Ken. Westbound lanes on I-40 near Harrison Avenue in Cary are back open now after a tractor trailer flipped on its side. Maybe you had to drive past this morning. It happened right before 6 o'clock. Troopers say the tractor trailers were traveling beside one another. At some point, one was forced off the road and it flipped, hit the ditch there, and you see it flip over on its side. No one was injured out of that. A driver faces charges after a crash that closed I-95 near Hope Mills for hours this morning. Troopers say the driver of a tractor trailer rear-ended another 18-wheeler about 1 o'clock this morning. One of those vehicles caught fire. Both drivers were taken to the hospital with minor injuries. The highway reopened just after 4:30 this morning.
I want to get into the WRAL Live Center for some breaking news that we have just confirmed within the past 5 minutes, Jeff. Right now, Sky 5 is above a barricaded person situation unfolding in Wake County, just outside the Raleigh city limits here. We're being told that around 10:45 this morning, deputies responded to Water Oak Drive to fulfill an eviction for that area over there, but the person inside the home refused to leave. And so right now, deputies are being cautious. They have evacuated the surrounding apartments that you see here. Officers with the Raleigh Police Department are there assisting as well. And the Wake County Sheriff's Office is also asking residents nearby to avoid that area. But as we zoom in with Sky 5, you can clearly see you can see some crime scene tape up there, as well as some deputies there on the ground. So here's what we're doing here on WRAL News. We have a team headed there on the ground, in addition to having Sky 5 above. As soon as we get more details about this situation, we will break it here on the WRAL Live Center.
Thanks, Chris. Top U.S. leaders warn our country is facing a, quote, serious threat of a terror attack. NBC's Hallie Jackson shows us what they worry about happening and how the White House is responding.
New alarm bells about the threat of terrorism in America from a former top intelligence official. Warning in Foreign Affairs, the United States faces a serious threat of a terrorist attack in the months ahead. Former acting CIA Director Michael Morrell with national security expert Graham Allison comparing the current threat level to the run-up to 9/11 and pointing to testimony from FBI Director Christopher Wray on the impact of the Hamas attack on Israel.
We've seen the threat from foreign terrorists rise to a whole nother level after October 7th.
And from other top Biden administration officials.
And we are in an elevated global threat environment.
Every morning, we worry about this question. We try to track anyone who might be trying to hurt the country.
Last week, U.S. immigration officials arrested 8 men from Tajikistan for potential ties to ISIS in Central Asia. 2 people familiar with the matter tell NBC News the men entered the U.S. through the southern border, some as recently as last year, and that their criminal background checks came back clean when they crossed. House Republicans for months have blamed President Biden's immigration positions.
That as a result of the administration's policies allowing people to cross the border unvetted, we have terrorists that are actively working with inside the United States that are a threat.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials recorded more than 200 encounters with individuals on the terror watch list at the southern border in fiscal year 2023, and nearly twice as many on the northern border. Altogether, just a fraction, less than 0.5% of all CBP encounters that year. The The White House says Congress must do more, pointing to the sweeping border security bill killed by Republicans earlier this year.
Everybody can talk a good game, but you can't really change what's happening at the border unless you have legislation. There's no magic wand that can be waved here to make it all go away.
The biggest threat we face are attacks overseas against our embassies, against our military bases. I think there is a threat against the homeland, but it's going to be much harder to penetrate our defenses.
And there is no current advisory from President Joe Biden to raise the terror threat alert level yet. The White House says it's watching it closely every day, and it could change in the future.
A new White House policy could shield about 500,000 undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens from being deported. These spouses would also be allowed to work legally while they seek citizenship. The policy uses a legal authority known as parole in place. It will be in effect for those who have been in the U.S. for a decade.
A new building is coming to Wake Tech's East Campus in Wendell. In the last hour, the community college held a groundbreaking ceremony for its new Advanced Technology Center. It'll be home to the college's Biopharmaceutical Technology degree program. The program will offer real-life simulate biopharma work, environment, system integration lab with robotic and other advanced manufacturing equipment.
And it ties into connecting us with what is our purpose, economic opportunity for the people of our region, and what is one of the most high-tech regions in the United States, and our role, too, here in East Wake to connect the people of East Wake into the opportunities that exist in our county. We're so excited about that.
The Advanced Technology Center is expected to open in spring of 2026. Wake Tech's East Campus will also open to students this fall.
Next at noon, a historic meeting between world leaders. How Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un are conspiring against the U.S.
Also, the Federal Trade Commission is suing Adobe. How you may have been caught up in what the government says are deceptive practices.
Plus, House lawmakers held their first vote on how to spend $1 billion surplus. At 12:30, Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie explains what has the House and Senate at odds.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.
Here in the WRAL Live Center, we are still following that breaking story happening in Wake County right now. We have some video to show you from Sky 5 above an apartment complex on Water Oak Drive, as investigators say someone is refusing to leave after they were trying to fulfill an eviction notice that's there. We have learned that guns have been drawn there on the scene. WRAL is staying with this story to get more breaking updates on it.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang today. The two-day visit is meant to deepen the ties between the two countries. Rebecca Castor shows us why U.S. officials are keeping a very close eye on the visit.
North Korea rolling out the red carpet for Russian President Vladimir Putin as he arrives in Pyongyang Tuesday for a two-day visit. His first to the isolated nation in 24 years. And one U.S. officials are watching closely.
We're not concerned about the trip. What we are concerned about is the deepening relationship between these two countries.
U.S. officials say North Korea is supplying the Russian military with ballistic missiles and other munitions for its war in Ukraine. And they expect Putin will ask for more during his visit.
They need North Korean artillery to carry on their war in Ukraine. And for that, they're willing to trade not only military technology and intelligence, but they're also going to confer diplomatic top cover on North Korea.
Ahead of his arrival, Putin published an op-ed in North Korean state media thanking Kim Jong-un for supporting his actions in Ukraine and saying the two leaders would work together to overcome U.S.-led sanctions imposed on both countries.
He's concerned about World War III, and he's assembling the coalition where he can enable third parties to target both U.S. homeland and allies such as South Korea.
Russia is under new pressure on the war front after President Biden recently gave the go-ahead for Ukraine to use U.S. weapons to strike inside Russia under limited circumstances. Germany followed suit, which Putin warned is a dangerous move.
That was Rebecca Castor reporting. Tensions on the Korean peninsula are also high after South Korea's military says it fired warning shots at North Korean soldiers who temporarily crossed the border for a second time this month.
Attorneys for Hunter Biden filed and then quickly withdrew a motion seeking a new trial in his federal gun case. Attorneys did not provide a reason for the quick change of heart. The filings argued there was a technical hiccup that should have kept the trial judge from proceeding to a jury trial in Delaware. The challenge was similar to several of his previous legal actions to delay or derail the case, which all failed in court previously. A pair of dueling bills in the Senate could complicate the process of holding social media platforms accountable for non-consensual AI images containing real faces with fake bodies. AI-generated images have impacted high school students, politicians, even entertainers. One measure requires social media platforms to police themselves and remove the images within 48 hours of receiving a valid request from a victim. Another allows victims to sue people who created, possessed, or distributed the image.
Today marks a significant day in American history. On this date, 41 years ago, NASA astronaut Sally Ride became the first American woman to go to space. She was a crew member on the Challenger in 1983. Ride helped kickstart 2 communication satellites and was a large part of scientific experiments during that 6-day mission in orbit. Ride passed away in 2012 after a battle with pancreatic cancer. A year later, she was recognized with the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her work.
Tonight, a former NC State swimmer will race for a spot on the U.S. Olympic team. Ross Dant is training with the Wolfpack Elites right here in Raleigh. He's the 4th seed in the 800 freestyle final. Dant says making the Olympic team after missing out on a spot narrowly in 2021 is something he's been working very hard for and is his main priority. The Olympic swimming trials continue through Sunday. You can watch all the excitement right here on WRAL. And since 2008, Ralph Lauren has outfitted Team USA at 9 consecutive Olympics and Paralympics. Today, we're getting a look at the uniforms the athletes will wear for the opening and closing ceremony. During the opening ceremony, Team USA athletes will wear a classic navy Ralph Lauren blazer with red and white detailing paired with a striped Oxford shirt, a navy knit tie, and tapered light denim jeans. For the closing ceremony, Ralph Lauren designed a race car style jacket with USA patch detailing, a classic striped polo, and crisp white jeans.
I think shorts and a T-shirt are going to be our go-to for the next week at least, especially this weekend. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner on the WRAL weather patio, also taking a look at the tropics. Elizabeth.
It is that time of year. June 1st starts the tropical season, and we had surprisingly a bit of a slow start this year, which is, of course, what we want to see. But it's starting to pick up in activity a little bit. You can see here some activity, sort of your eyes drawn to the middle of the screen there, close to Central America. And that's where we're seeing our first system of the season. So a potential tropical cyclone, and it's potential tropical cyclone number 1. It's 355 miles southeast of La Pesca, Mexico, moving north at 7 miles per hour. It has winds at 40 miles per hour. Now, winds at 40 miles per hour are strong enough for it to be a tropical storm. And you say, well, why is it this potential thing? Well, it doesn't have a closed circulation. So it has to have strong enough winds and a closed circulation to become a tropical storm. So if it gets that closed circulation, it will be Alberto. That's going to be our number 1 name on the list, but it won't really matter. The winds will be just as strong, whether it's Alberto or not, and the rainfall will be just as heavy. And it's really going to be a rain situation more than anything. It is likely to make landfall late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, with winds at about 50 miles per hour or so. And it's going to spread rain not just into Mexico, but all the way up into Texas as well. New today, we had a tropical storm watch. Now we have a tropical storm warning for almost the entire coast of Texas. And so a storm surge of 3 to 4 feet, which can be significant for a lot of the low-lying barrier islands. Texas has a lot of those, just like we do here in North Carolina. And of course, the rainfall really significant all the way down into Mexico. We could see as much as 10 to 15 inches of rain. But for Texas, it's likely to be around 5 to 10. Still, 5 to 10 inches can cause some flooding. It's likely to be a little bit worse in Mexico, where it moves into mountainous area. We tend to see some mudslides happening. So we're watching a potential tropical cyclone. One could be Alberto before it makes landfall tomorrow night. Rain and flooding in Texas and Mexico. Really nothing here. We do have one system that's continuing to look like it might develop in the Bahamas. Interestingly enough, there's another system that may develop in the southern Gulf of Mexico after this first one moves on by. So let's take a look at Futurecast. Watch that circulation down there in the Gulf. It looks like it starts to become closed by the time it makes landfall. But look at all that rain, the yellows and oranges there in Mexico and in Texas. Now look over towards, say, just north and east of Tampa, right there along the coast of South Carolina and Georgia. A little bit of rain on Friday. It probably won't make it all the way into North Carolina, but it will bump up our moisture. It'll bump up our humidity, so it may feel pretty unpleasant. And then another system that could develop there in the Gulf of Mexico as well as we get into the second half of the weekend and into early next week. It's a little breezy out here right now, feeling fairly comfortable, but we know that's not going to last long. We're tracking that heat dome that's going to bring us some very hot conditions as we get into the weekend. Of course, by Friday, looking at mid-90s and then upper 90s Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Coming up, we're going to talk about when we could see a heat advisory and what that means here.
That heat dome just sounds hot. All right, Elizabeth, thank you. The government is cracking down on a popular software company that makes products for creative design and publishing. The reason behind the lawsuit filed by the FTC.
And you wouldn't think of swimming in a pool that wasn't treated with chlorine, but it can really dry out your hair and your skin. Later, how you can reverse the negative effects.
U.S. electric vehicle startup Fisker has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. A spokesperson says it faced various market conditions that affected how it operated. We are seeing this happen to many EV companies as demand is low. The company's only product is the Fisker Ocean electric SUV. It made about 10,000 of them last year, but only about half of those were delivered to customers. The Internal Revenue Service is closing a major tax loophole for wealthy taxpayers. It's called partnership basis shifting. It allows a business or person to move assets among a series of related parties to avoid paying taxes. Biden administration officials say there are no economic grounds for the transactions, and closing the loophole could raise $50 billion. Funding through the Inflation Reduction Act increased oversight and revealed the extent of this tax shelter. The IRS also plans to raise audit rates on companies with assets over $250 million next year.
The government is taking aim at the makers of products such as Photoshop and Illustrator. The Federal Trade Commission is suing Adobe for deceptive practices. The agency says Adobe allegedly enrolled consumers into year-long subscriptions and did not reveal the terms, such as early cancellation fees. The lawsuit says Adobe made cancellation processes intentionally hard to navigate, whether online or by phone. Still to come, state lawmakers are working on a spending plan for next year, what they're proposing to do with the money and how it could impact you and your children.
Plus, a record-shattering heat wave is making its way across the U.S. The warning officials are issuing to millions of Americans.
Shot in 4K ultra-high definition. Your number one source for local news. WRAL News. Coverage you can count on.
State House lawmakers held their first vote this morning on a revised spending plan for the upcoming year starting July 1st. It includes a budget surplus of nearly $1 billion.
But it may be an exercise in futility. House and Senate leaders have not agreed on how much to spend or what to spend it on. WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie joins us live from the legislature with what they're proposing to do, Laura.
You know, that surplus is $900 million. I mean, that sounds like a lot of money, right? But when you compare it to the actual overall budget, which is $32 billion, it's really not all that much spare change. So lawmakers have to make some tough choices about how they want to spend it. Now, House lawmakers say they want to spend some of the extra money to add to raises that they've already planned for state employees and teachers. State employee raises next year would increase from 3% already planned to 4%. Teachers would go from 3% to an average of 4.4%, and retirees would get a one-time 2% bonus. They're also putting $135 million into child care supplements to help centers keep their doors open, but that's still less than child care centers say they need to stay in business. The big ticket item is $500 million to expand the state's school voucher program to every student, regardless of income. Budget Chairman Donnie Lambeth said the decisions were difficult.
Quite frankly, we struggled with so many demands on needs and just simply not enough extra funds this time, but things that we felt like were key priority. We felt like we needed to fund. And
The Senate has not yet agreed to this budget, so it may never become law. House and Senate Republican leaders have been negotiating over the budget for months now, but the House wants to spend more than the Senate does, and the House also wants to dip into savings, which is something the Senate does not want to do. The budget will go through 2 more House committees today before it gets floor votes in the House tomorrow and Thursday. After that, it's hard to say. The Senate could give it a hearing, or they could let it die in committee.
And that was Laura Leslie reporting live. Homeowners in Durham will soon pay higher property taxes. The city approved its $670 million budget last night, days after the county increased taxes. For someone who owns a home valued at $254,000, the median tax value in the city of Durham, this means a yearly city tax bill of just over $1,500. The budget will take effect on July 1st. And today, Wake County school leaders will vote on their interim budget for the coming school year. Board members are waiting to see what they get in the state budget before passing a final budget. The county budget passed this month. It gave Wake schools $5 million less than what school leaders requested. That means there are concerns about programs once covered by pandemic relief money. Substitute teachers could also take a hit in the new budget. School leaders say teacher pay will remain a priority.
More than 150 million people are facing temperatures in the 90s today, and we are right in that cauldron. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner says our weekend forecast could get downright dangerous. NBC's Maggie Vespa reports the heat is also fueling more than 20 dangerous wildfires out west.
This morning, tens of millions from coast to coast are broiling thanks to an early blast of record heat.
Oh my God, it's going to be hot.
More than 70 million Americans waking up under heat alerts from Iowa through Maine. A stubborn heat dome sending temperatures soaring up to 25 degrees above average and threatening to shatter more than 100 daily records this week. In the Midwest, Chicago hitting 97 degrees yesterday, smashing a record set back in 1957. And Detroit residents taking a sweltering 101-degree heat index in stride.
A great smothering heat and then a beautiful cool breeze off the Michigan water.
The National Weather Service warning the Ohio River Valley may experience its most impactful heat wave of the 21st century.
You can't be out too long. You have to stay hydrated.
And those blistering temps are now barreling east, with officials in several major cities warning people to take the heat seriously.
Summers are different than they were before.
New York's governor activating the National Guard, Boston's mayor declaring a state of emergency. But out west, the emergency is wildfires, with more than 20 burning across multiple states. New evacuation orders issued yesterday for an entire community in New Mexico. The village of Ruidoso telling residents go now, with 2 fires growing rapidly in the area. And in California,
make sure you got our back.
The Post fire north of LA now topping 15,000 acres and threatening dozens of homes. With dramatic conditions in the west and extreme heat rolling east, Americans bracing for a wild weather week.
That was Maggie Vespa reporting. Power companies are preparing for the extra strain that will be put on their system. Increased use of air conditioners puts stress on the power grid. Duke Energy tells WRAL it is not anticipating any problems meeting demand during this hot week. WRAL asked Duke Energy spokesperson Jeff Brooks about the measures that are in place to ensure everyone's power stays on.
This is the time of year when we do tend to use our demand response technologies more. So air conditioner control, things like that could happen during this time period. We've been using it some already.
Duke Energy also uses what it calls self-healing technology to automatically detect outages and reroute power. That's designed to limit the overall impact of an outage.
It turns out the sun might not be the only thing damaging your skin at the pool this summer. The impact doctors say chlorine can leave on your bodies and what you can do to help prevent it.
Plus, he came face to face with a shark, and now he is sharing his story. One man's unforgettable experience tussling with that shark, and who managed to help save his life. For news, weather, and traffic of the day, be sure to download the WRAL News app. Bouncing around to some beaches on our coast this noon. Showed you Carolina Beach off the top of the hour. Now you're looking live at Wrightsville Beach and watching WRAL News available on YouTube TV and the WRAL app on your TV or streaming device. Lots of folks out there right now. People who take a frequently used diabetes drug do not appear to have a greater risk of conceiving a child with birth defects. The findings contradict a 2022 study that said men who took metformin 3 months before their partner became pregnant had a 40% greater chance of having a child with defects. A researcher says the increased risk noted in the earlier research could be related to issues caused by diabetes rather than the drug. Americans appear to be eating healthier, but their diets haven't improved much over the past 20 years. Researchers studied 50,000 Americans between 1999 and 2020 and found that bad diets only decreased 12%. One key factor in the low grade, the lack of fruits and vegetables in daily meals. The study also highlights the high levels of refined grains, ultra-processed foods, and processed meats that we eat.
Chlorine is a great product for your pool because it helps disinfect it, but that same product is also very drying for your skin and your hair. That dryness can cause dermatitis, which is a type of rash on the skin. As for your hair and nails, it can strip it of natural oils, making them more brittle. But there are things that you can do to reverse the effects.
While that chlorine's on you, you don't want it to sit and continue to cause irritation. So you want to get in, take a shower, use a gentle cleanser to, get that pool water off of you. And then moisturizing is really important. So all that oil that you've just stripped off your skin, you want to put back on.
And products that have ceramides in them or alpha hydroxy acids are good products to put back on your skin to minimize the irritation and the dryness. And don't forget to apply plenty of sunscreen before you go swimming.
Hey, Michelle here in the WRAL Live Center. I'm still keeping my eye on that situation in Wake County that's above Water Oak Drive. We have some video that I can show you there from Sky 5 above. There is that heavy police presence there as deputies are telling us that they responded there because someone refused to leave after they were serving an eviction notice there. But the area has been evacuated because deputies say they are being cautious. We have a team headed to the scene on the ground right now as we continue to look for more information with this. Elizabeth will be back with our steamy forecast in just a second.
Honeybees not only help to pollinate the world's food, scientists say they can also detect lung cancer. Researchers at Michigan State University found honeybees can detect chemicals associated with lung cancer in people's breath. When presented with two synthetic odors, one that contained compounds present in the breath of a person who has cancer and one without, researchers found honeybees could tell the difference between which odor contained cancer. They were also able to recognize various types of lung cancer. Scientists say the discovery could help patients receive specific diagnoses quickly.
Bees good, sharks bad. It's something many people are afraid of, coming face to face with a shark. For one California man, that fear turned into reality. NBC's Gotti Schwartz shows us how people he barely knew potentially saved his life.
Beachgoers are soaking up the sun and surf as summer gets underway. But beware, new warnings about the dangers of sharks under the water's surface. Caleb Adams bears the scars from his close encounter.
I yelled help and shark, just two clear words.
Caleb was in the waters of Del Mar, California, with 18 members of an open water swim group.
It was a strong hit to my body. I knew I had been hit by a shark, and I tussled with the animal for what was seconds.
Swim buddy Kevin Barrett heard him yelling for help.
You know that that's a real scream.
On the second time I struck the animal and I felt a softer tissue, I'm going to speculate that that was inside the shark's mouth. And I had several cuts on my hand and wrist.
The shark disappeared by the time Kevin got there.
When I was swimming him in, the blood was just pouring out of his chest. We really just needed to get him in shore as quickly as possible.
Lifeguard Cameron Whiting helped get Caleb onto the beach.
We could really see the traumatic extent of his injuries, and it was not pretty. Cameron kept his hand under Caleb's chin. He just said, just don't look down. Caleb was amazingly calm.
Caleb was rushed into surgery, his entire torso a roadmap of shark bites and stitches. Experts say attacks like the one Caleb survived may become more frequent as waters get crowded this summer.
It is very much a wild environment anytime you're entering the ocean.
Though still extremely rare, last year saw an uptick in unprovoked shark attacks and fatalities. The U.S. had 36 unprovoked attacks in 2023, accounting for more than half of the 69 incidents across the globe. Florida leading the nation in attacks. Just this month, 3 swimmers off the Florida Panhandle were attacked by sharks in a single day. But West Coast beaches are also a hotspot. In California, barely 2 weeks after the shark attack, Caleb has returned to the same beach with his wife, Ginny.
It's emotional being here, without question.
Reflecting on those who stepped in to help.
I have a beautiful community to lean on, and I'm very thankful.
Super scary. As you head to the beach this summer, some reminders on ways you can avoid shark attacks. Avoid swimming at dusk or dawn. Don't wear anything shiny in the water. Don't go too far from shore. And always stay with a buddy in the water.
Some good tips for people on our coast to keep in mind as well. Those beaches are busy right now, and for good reason. It is hot out there. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner on the WRAL weather patio, the beach or the lake, both good places to be.
It's all going to be right where you want to be. Take a live look here. This is from the Point restaurant. When I pulled this up, there were people all over the docks and all over the boats, and they must have gone in to maybe grab a bite to eat. But beautiful view. You can see that boat off in the distance as well. So, and another one. Look at that. There's 4 boats in the picture right now. Just a really nice afternoon to be out. It's definitely going to be hot in the low 90s, but in the shade, it feels pretty comfortable. There's a little bit of a breeze out here on the weather patio. It is 86 degrees, and we're headed for around 92. But at least at the moment, it's feeling fairly comfortable. Our dew point is not off the charts just yet. It will be by the time we get to the weekend, though. Looking at 92 this afternoon in Raleigh, 91 in Durham, and 93 in Fayetteville for our afternoon highs. And so that's plenty warm. But check out that dew point, our muggy meter. Our dew point is at 63. And so the muggy meter is sitting at tolerable right now. Now, it's going to jump back up to tropical as we get closer to the weekend. And the more moisture there is in the atmosphere, the harder it is for our bodies to cool themselves. So if you're sweating, what happens is we have what we call evaporative cooling. So the sweat on your skin evaporates into the air and it makes you feel cooler. Like when you get out of the shower, it's chilly and you want to put a towel on, right? So if there's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, though, there's no place for that sweat to evaporate to, and your body just can't cool down very efficiently, so it feels hotter. That's where we're headed for the weekend. You can see that muggy meter headed to tropical Saturday, Sunday. It'll be there again on Monday, too, and that's just going to feel on the dangerous side. We're going to see a heat index up around 105 potentially this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You can take a look here. The next few afternoons, not so bad. It'll feel like low 90s all the way through Thursday, but the heat index will be pushing 100 Friday and maybe 103, 104 Saturday, and then Sunday and Monday could be up to 105 to maybe 106. So it is headed our way. We'll take a look at that heat risk map again. Saturday, this is the updated version for today, and it's showing a moderate risk of heat-related illnesses, and so that's going to be probably about 100 for the heat index. But then you take a look at Sunday here, and you can see it's almost all red. That's going to put us at, say, 105. And then on Monday, it gets even worse. The red area is going to be about 105. And we have some pockets of purple around the triangle and then down around Fayetteville, which just bumps up that risk to extreme. So a heat advisory is going to be a heat index of, say, 104 to 109. So it is likely that the Weather Service, at least Sunday and Monday, will put us under a heat advisory, possibly an excessive heat warning in a few places. That's 110 or above. So far, if you count up all the 90-degree days that we have in the forecast, which are 7 in a row, we'll have 12. And the last time we had that long of a stretch of 90-plus degree days was way back in August into early September of 22. We didn't even see that last year. So this is a little bit unprecedented. So, of course, we have Juneteenth tomorrow. We have the first day of summer on Thursday, and then we're going to be bracing for that very hot condition, the hot conditions that we'll see over the weekend, and a small chance for a shower or thunderstorm on Monday.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. Singer Justin Timberlake facing charges after being accused of driving while intoxicated. The new details we're learning about his arrest.
And your winning Powerball numbers 30, 48, 53, 58, 66. The Powerball is 9. The multipliers 2.
As we wrap things up, here's a look at a few of the headlines we're following today.
We have new information about a state employee who was arrested in California. WRAL Investigates broke the story last night about Harlan Fry. We've learned that he is no longer employed at the North Carolina Department of Revenue. Fry is charged with arranging a meeting with a child for lewd purposes.
And starting today, new lanes are now open on a busy part of I-440 that's been under construction for a while. It's happening along I-440 West from Lake Boone Trail to Western Boulevard. Traffic has shifted onto the new Wade Avenue Bridge and Hillsborough Street Bridge. This replaces the temporary lanes that have been in place as part of the I-440 improvement project.
Right now, the Wake County Sheriff's Office is on the scene after deputies say someone refused to leave an apartment after being evicted. Several North Raleigh apartments have been evacuated. This is happening on Water Oak Drive. Sky 5 flew over that scene. There was a large law enforcement presence and guns were drawn. Officers with the Raleigh Police Department are on the scene assisting.
And Jeff, right now, Sky 5 is above this live scene right now in Raleigh. This is on New Hope Church Road and St. Albans Drive, where there appears to be a brush fire by some train tracks that are here. This isn't too far from where a Walmart is in this location. Now, it's not quite clear what started the flames just yet, but I can tell you that roads in the area are being blocked by emergency vehicles, including fire trucks. So if you're in this area nearby, definitely a good idea to stay away from it. WRAL News will be working to try to get more information on that fire.
Singer Justin Timberlake has been arrested after being accused of driving while intoxicated.
Yeah, this happened at an area in Long Island, New York, just after midnight, and we do know he was expected in court this morning. A spokesperson says he told police he, quote, had one martini and followed my friends home. The singer was just in Raleigh last week on the Forget Tomorrow World Tour.
NASA's Voyager 1 spacecraft is fully operational again. It had to undergo long-distance repairs for months. The spacecraft started sending back corrupted science and engineering data in November. Engineers did work to fix the problem. The spacecraft is now traveling 15 billion miles from Earth through interstellar space.
Our pet of the day is a beautiful girl from Red Barn Rescue. This is Angie. This elegant and athletic young lady is always excited to greet her human friends at Red Barn. She's confident, intelligent, friendly, and excels at fetch. Angie's about 2 years old, 36 pounds, and believed to be an Australian Kelpie mix. She's a medium energy dog who would enjoy an owner to run or take walks with her, and a fenced yard to play fetch would be a dream come true for her. If you're ready to meet Angie, please visit redbarnrescue.com and fill out an application.
Very sweet. In addition to being hard on people and livelihoods, extreme heat waves can take a huge toll economically. Today on your News at 4, we'll explain how the changing climate is also going to impact you financially as well. And Apple is discontinuing its Buy Now, Pay Later service as it gets set to launch a new program later this year.
Yeah, users will be able to get installment loans offered through third-party credit, debit cards, and lenders when checking out with Apple Pay. Existing users who have open loans with the current program will still be able to manage them and make payments via the Wallet app. NBC News Daily is up next here on WRAL, your next local news update in 30 minutes.
And you can get breaking news updates anytime with our WRAL News app. Have a great day. Stay cool out there.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.